Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain clients to your veterinary hospital using digital marketing. My name is Brandon Brashears. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode today. In today's episode, we have a guest named Gil Bolleton, who is the co-founder of Sploot Vets. Sploot Vets is currently in Denver, and also they're going to be opening a location in Chicago. And it's really incredible to see how much he's achieved. He's been open now for almost over a year, almost a year and a half. And in that year and a half, he's accomplished so much, opened multiple locations, is expanding to Chicago as well. And I think the way that he approaches marketing is really, really important for people that are in the veterinary industry to look at, because the way that he's doing things is just really cool. It's very different. We get into a lot of great topics. Before we begin today's episode, I want to mention a couple things. So first off, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe in iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get podcasts from. I have a ton of content coming out here on a weekly basis. We're going to be doing 2 episodes per week, which I think will be great for you. The next series that I have coming out is actually for service-specific marketing. I think it's going to be very beneficial, so be sure to subscribe. Also, if you know anybody who you think could benefit, be sure to share this with them. I always appreciate that. I'd also like to mention this episode has 2 sponsors this week. We have Brad Haven, has 2 websites, usedvetequipment.com and newvetequipment.com. For over 9 years now, usedvetequipment.com has been helping vets buy and sell used equipment. You can save money when you buy used veterinary equipment. Everything from cages, kennels, pumps, x-ray equipment, lasers, ultrasounds, dental equipment, surgery equipment, lab equipment, from Abaxis, IDEX, and Heska. Got tables, tubs, and sinks, vet trucks, and vet boxes. What do you have to sell? At usedvetequipment.com, they bring the buyer and seller together. Also, if you're looking for new veterinary equipment with amazing warranties, check out newvetequipment.com. They show you the price up front. They have digital x-ray equipment, dental x-ray equipment, ultrasound equipment, LED surgery lighting, surgery tables, autoclaves. When you go to newvetequipment.com, you'll clearly see the price on everything for sale, and you'll get a great warranty. All right, so let's jump into today's episode. Again, we have Gil and his practice, Sploot Vet in Denver. I mean, just the way that he's approached everything from experience to, he's been hiring like crazy. He's been growing like crazy. And so it's in my opinion, very successful startup. He's spending a lot on ads. I'm helping him with his ads. And so his approach to marketing is unlike any other practice that I've seen or worked with. And I just really, really enjoy working with Gil. And so I think that applying the insights that he's taking to veterinary marketing is going to be really helpful for you, because he's definitely one of the smartest marketers I've encountered in the space, and so I'm really excited to talk with him. So without further ado, here's my interview with Gil. This week we have Gil from Sploot Vets. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Gil. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
So Gil, can you give us a little bit of background of how you got started in veterinary medicine? Because I think it's a unique kind of entry point into veterinary medicine that most people, work in a practice generally, right? And they are veterinarians, or, how did you get started in this industry?
Yeah, so we started as pet parents. Yoav and myself, both of us are the co-founder of Sploot. We've been pet parents our entire lives. And, as we thought about, or we experienced the problems that many pet parents experience themselves, being entrepreneurs, we thought about, how can we solve these issues ourselves? And the idea with founding Sploot was, one, to really build a clinic that targets the new generation of pet parents. So if you're thinking about mostly like millennials, even Gen Zs, their expectations are very different than, let's say, our parents or older generations. And it comes to one, I think, the way they see their pets. Of course, you have trends such as immunization of pets, but also the expectations and the focus on customer experience and customer service, as well as the breadth of services that they're expecting to get from their vet. And with that in mind, what Yoav and I decided to do is to build a network of clinics that, one, will provide you with most of the care you need. So it's the combination of both primary care as well as urgent care. So anything a regular vet will do, including surgeries and dentals that are more like preventative and ongoing, but also when something happened and you have something more urgent, and sometimes it's a true urgent care situation, but sometimes it's even like just a preference or perceived urgent situation that you want, just for your peace of mind, you want your vet to look at it. And this is the urgent care aspect. So the way we set up the operation was, okay, we want to be there for you every day of the year. So we are open Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays as well. And also the accessibility. So in terms of operating hours, we are open until 10 p.m. every day. We always have capacity for same-day appointments, next-day appointments, to really help our clients with those urgent needs. And also, one of the things we thought about, okay, how do we actually design the clinic to really cater for our clients and their needs? And a lot of it revolves around customer experience. So it's both the design of the clinic, that of course is very modern, and if the look and feel is very different than, I would say, other clinics in the industry, or of course, fashion clinics. And also the focus on customer experience. And some of it is technology, streamline the journey of the client, facilitate it, make it easier to book an appointment, to reach us via phone or via text, or even like book online. And also, of course, the team itself. So we have a dedicated team of, we call it Pet Parents Experience Team, that is really there to help our clients with honestly everything they need.
Definitely. I think one of the most, interesting things about the veterinary industry is that it's just, there's a lot of, dogma and tradition around everything that you just, spoke about, from, hours that people are open to services that they offer. And I think that and not having been in the practice, but just seeing a lot of the pictures and things and, content and talking with you, I think it's kind of just making veterinary medicine like a great experience as you would have in any kind of other industry. That doesn't really exist, I think, to the same extent as it does, other types of businesses. And so I think it's super interesting because first off, you are being really successful in it, right? And so you have 4 practices open now. And how many practices are you going to be opening, say, in the next year, or what's, I guess, the 2-year goal, for example?
Yeah, so we have three clinics open now, and we're hoping to have around 7 clinics by the end of the year, and many more to come next year. So far, we started in the Denver area. So far, all of our clinics are in Denver. We will open our first Chicago location during the summer of this year, which is going to be extremely, again, a great challenge, but also very, very exciting for us to enter a new market that we think has huge potential, and hopefully another Chicago clinic by the end of this year.
That's really cool. So I think the coolest thing that I've seen when it comes to working with you and how you approach marketing, and I've only seen a small aspect of it, is I think you have a really good kind of outlook on customer acquisition, as well as opportunity cost of not doing advertising and things. But when you went into opening a practice versus having experience now, what have been some of the, I think, most important things that you've seen when it's come to successfully marketing your practices?
Yeah, I think it was a very interesting journey. So the first thing we did, and we entered the space, of course, from the outside, which it's always a challenge, but an opportunity as well, because you do bring things that you saw in other industries, and you're also not, you don't have any, like, I can call it baggage, but you just don't have like a certain perception. So everything, you can question everything in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. The first thing we did was honestly to talk with people in the industry and understand, what's working and what people are usually doing for marketing. And of course, we had lots of conversation about what best practices are, etc. And some of them, they make a lot of sense. I think some of them were a little bit different for us, given the fact that our focus is mostly on growth marketing because we are opening new clinics. And we didn't really have established clinics that, we have already established client base that, we market to, and the clinic, and many clinics today are full, right? So then the marketing focus is very different. In our case, the focus was on growth marketing. So we realized quickly, okay, there are lots of things that other people are doing that are relevant for us, right? Because we don't have many players that are doing de novo. You have some, but not a lot. And as such, that's the prism that we took from the beginning. The one thing that was really important for us, and I think you saw that, we're open to consider everything. We have an hypothesis, we run with it, but we focus on a lot of testing and measuring results, right? And that was crucial for us in order to understand, okay, what I'm doing actually has the ROI that I'm expecting, and it makes sense versus other things that I can do, and that's the opportunity cost that you mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and it's interesting right now, the practices that I'm talking to, especially new practices that are reaching out to me, almost everybody is seeing a pretty significant slowdown. And they've just let market dictate growth through the past 3 years, which is understandable because market demand has been wild. But I think it's really interesting because a lot of the practices that have not been focusing on growth marketing are probably going to have to get up to it because they're going to be stuck with kind of whatever the market gives them here over the next couple of years if they don't turn things around. But I think that probably is a good advantage that you have compared to other practices, at least as we enter this new financial market. But be interesting to see for sure.
And Brandon, I think it's a great point because when you're looking at established practices, and that's something we heard from many clinic owners and marketing folks in the industry. Oftentimes the focus is how to bring in the right clients, right? Because you're already full. So the question is how do I bring the right clients, the right people in, which is very different, of course, from growth marketing, but not too different, right? So I think that the point you just said, whether I'm letting the market just bring let's say I open a new clinic, right? And I just let the market kind of bring people in for me without me doing lots of effort in terms of really targeting my audience, right? And that's something we went through, right? We try to understand who is the right audience for us. Of course, we had we had our own avatar, as you call it, of who is my segment that I'm targeting, right? Or a key segment, right? We had a few. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you are bringing in through the door people who are the right fit for you, and you're the right fit for them, right? And that's something that we also spend a lot of time really analyzing the data and understanding, okay, are we actually targeting the people who will appreciate our value proposition? And that's a win-win, right? The last thing we want is to bring people in, and they might have a good experience, but they will not stick with us for the long term because, again, our offering is not the best fit for them. And I think it's probably not an ideal case for the client, and of course for us, because we want to have people join us and join what we call the Splut family and be with us in the long run, right? That's I think a win-win situation for everyone, and it's not easy to do. I think especially as you grow, especially as you launch a clinic. But I would say nowadays, especially with digital marketing, and with all the data that you can actually analyze and look at, I think you can get pretty pretty close, right? And you can do a pretty good job in targeting the right audience.
Agreed. I think um, definitely when it comes to people in your practice and attracting the right people. I mean, I think you worked really hard building a brand image that is recognizable and unique, which is, I think, a hard thing to do in the veterinary industry. I think that's one thing that is said a lot, is that we're reimagining veterinary medicine or making something different, but it just looks like a normal practice for the most part. But I think yours is actually unique, right? You have the convenient hours, you have a lot of great amenities, you offer full service, you can get people in same day. There's a lot of really cool things about that. When you're thinking about your branding and things, how much effort and energy would you say you put into like maintaining that brand and that kind of brand story versus other marketing elements? Because I see what you do on your paid advertising and things, but when you look at your whole marketing picture, what does that look like as far as trying to make sure that content and everything is aligned and kind of moving through? Like how important are all those other aspects? Because I obviously am definitely weighted in what I see with what you do, but I see that you're doing a lot of other things in there.
Yeah, so we put a lot of effort on branding, and I think the way we view it is not, lots of people, they start with brand. Okay, that's the brand I want to create, and that's what I want to be, which is great. I think the way we actually built our brand was more of an evolution, very, very fast one, right? Because we launched our first clinic in it was December 2021, so not too long ago. But what we wanted to make sure, and again, we had in our mind, Yoav and I, when we founded Sploot, we had a vision of what we want the company to be, but it does have some flexibility. So I think one thing as part of branding, right, as part of marketing, we spent some time, okay, this is the offering, but let's see what our clients really value, right? And we had some surprises. There were certain things that we thought, and we put a lot of effort in them, right? And probably people will really value, but the perceived value was not as high as we thought it would be. On the other hand, things that we didn't even anticipate, people really appreciated. And as such, we kind of tailored the operation. Now, the one thing we did with branding and our operations and marketing operations for us is kind of one of the same. In a sense, I'll give an example even for marketing. So for us, customer experience is crucial, right? And something we put a lot of effort in doing well. And we have a dedicated team that is helping us with that, as well as investment in technology, etc. For us, that's a value proposition in terms of marketing, right? That's what probably going to help us with retention as well. So the value proposition of acquiring clients, but also retain them. And, if we can tell the greatest story on earth, but if people come in through the door and we actually don't deliver on what we promise, that's not going to fly, right? So we kind of like the brand development that we had, we were doing that in parallel of really building the operations behind it to really justify it, understanding who our clients, who they are and what they value, right? And then really focus, okay, like how do I actually make sure that feel, okay, and the value proposition that we have, how does it come across in every engagement we have? So, for example, it can be the way we design our clinics. And every clinic now evolves a little bit based on these learnings, but the design of the clinic, and some of it could be, the colors we choose, and what we put on the wall, and like merely like interior design. But some of it will even be, how do we make sure that clients, the flow in the clinic, right, is the most convenient and efficient, because something like efficiency and convenience is something that is very important to us as well as our clients. And that's kind of like the I would say the linkage between ops and branding. The other things, the language that we use, the tone, right, or the voice, as well as like the design. It's all aligned based on what we know clients really value and what we or the way we want them to imagine us. Now, of course, we know as we do marketing as well, like the interaction with us not necessarily needs to happen as part of like Google Ads, right? Some of it will happen on social media. Some of it might be just like organic search when someone just saw like an article that they like. They might meet us with our local marketing efforts in a dog park, as an example, or in one of our events. But what we wanted to make sure is that we have a consistent voice and also like feel of the brand that will convey that value proposition. It's something that is very hard to do, but we have a great VP of branding and marketing that really helped us, push that front. And we evolved, right? So I would say we started with something basic that were based on our vision or preliminary vision. But then as we interacted with our clients and we understood what they value and where or how we see the vision of the company, right? Mm-hmm. After a year of operations, then we kind of like refresh the branding accordingly, and it touches everything, like visual, physical design, the clinic, of course, like copywriting and content, etc.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's just definite consistency through all of the stuff that I see on, at least from the ads perspective, with content and things. That's really interesting. I think one of the things that makes you unique too is that you're investing a lot into your marketing with your team members and things. Can you talk a little bit about the people that you've hired and kind of the decisions behind deciding to hire them? And that's one thing I think most of veterinary hospitals do, is they just have somebody with another role is doing marketing. But can you kind of talk about what informed that decision and what kind of benefits you've seen from it too?
Yeah. So I would say it was clear relatively early on that, marketing for us is definitely an important pillar as part of Sploot, right, in the organization. And I would say especially because we know that we're going to have focus in the, I would say, of course, short term and even like medium term and even long term, depends on, our journey around growth marketing, which I think it's a little different if you're comparing us to, let's say, just like an individual clinic that will go through that journey for some time, but probably they're going to reach like a steady state where the clinic is at capacity. I honestly do believe that, the problem today in the industry is not necessarily demand, but it's more supply. Mm-hmm. And making sure, you actually have the best team you can probably have, right? That's probably the most important. And that's, I would say, a whole focus of Sploot. There's some, marketing is related to that as well, because you do market the company to new hires, etc. Mm-hmm. But that's super important, I'm sure, for us and for every clinic in the US today. I would say that in terms of the hiring, what we knew that one, it's definitely a function that is worth investing in. People, time, effort, focus, technology, all of that. In terms of the people, what was important for us was to bring folks with one, just like experience in marketing. We found that in other industries that can bring their experience, outside view, we find is very helpful. But we want experience in marketing and branding, as I mentioned, we just talked about. It's a very important aspect of Sploot, of course. The other thing that was very important for us, at least, was to bring folks who are willing to really push the status quo, and they can move fast, and also they feel very comfortable with just like experimenting. And that's the way we're looking at things in marketing. Like everything is on the table, right? As long as we can measure it. And if we measure it and test, then you probably not with a lot of budget and effort, you can get early signals and understand, oh, this is something that is interesting. It's actually worth double clicking on and move forward and even like invest more time, invest more resources, and see maybe it's going to be actually a pretty important channel for us or a pretty important campaign for the company in terms of results.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment we do that, we were willing to invest, I would say, the time and resources and then hire even more people the moment we got those signals, right? So what we looked at, we tried with you, of course, with your expertise, which was honestly fundamental to our success. In terms of like digital channels, we also try other channels. And each channel, what we do, we start with something that is rather small. It doesn't take too much time or too much effort and resources, also in terms of money and budget. And we're trying to get an early signal. Then when we got that signal, we say, okay, that's interesting. Let's continue. And then we'll actually see if we can get the same result, right? So the same ROI at scale. If that's the case, that's terrific. And then we can move on to like other initiatives. The moment we felt comfortable, for example, with digital marketing, we decided to bring on board someone who would manage that as well. Because again, we felt very comfortable with the results. We felt very comfortable with the ROI, so we can justify it. And we're doing the same things today with other channels.
Definitely. I think that's a really good principle to have. And it's very interesting to see just how good you are at compiling data and things. Can you tell me a little bit about, as much as you're comfortable, your process and journey in getting data and how that has impacted you? Because I think that's one of the biggest barriers for most practices is that they don't have a grasp on their data. And so they can't inform any of their marketing decisions just because they don't know generally what's happening. And there's only been, I think, a total of 3 practices who've been able to share their practice management software data so that you can actually know what is working and having even close to accurate conversion data, which is pretty wild. But how important has data been for you? And you talk about technology. I think that most hospitals will say technology, but they mean maybe a website. Can you tell me a little bit about your approach and I guess what made you want to go after that versus, I guess, the traditional practice who doesn't do any kind of measurement whatsoever?
Yeah, and I think so. Funnily enough, about like whether data is available or not, I think overall it exists, and it's probably enough to inform most practice owners and managers in terms of like marketing decisions. Some of that is available to you, let's say through social media. Some data is available to you, let's say if you're doing Google Ads, etc. I think the big problem, and that's probably, by the way, that's probably enough for some level of like marketing efforts. It's enough to understand what's working, what's not. It's not the whole data that you probably need, and like closing the loop, right? From the moment you start interacting with the client, or you can call it like a lead, as you nurture it, because some clients will not convert right away. It might take some time. So then you are talking about something a little bit more sophisticated in connecting all the dots. But I think the basic exists. So when we look, for example, we're using just one of the PMSs that is available out there, the practice management software. And we know it's probably very, very similar across other PMSs as well if you're looking at reporting. So they do have reporting. They can give you some information. You can take some information from Google Ads, from Yelp. They have their own reporting. Social media, see engagement. You can track progress, which can give you some of the picture, which is actually not bad. I think for us, and this is where we might differ from individual practices, because we are growing pretty quickly and we're opening multiple clinics. What we wanted to make sure is that we have a very clear picture about what's working and what's not, right? Because our view was we are willing to actually take big bets on things as long as we know they work and as long as we can monitor. So I think, most people know it, but if you, for example, you launch like a certain campaign, a certain channel for just like a limited budget with a limited audience and reach, you can see like a very positive ROI. But then when you're starting like to scale it and get more impressions, et cetera, it becomes probably you see a diminishing return, right? So it's not as efficient. Mm-hmm. But you want to make sure as you spend more budget and resources and time that you're actually seeing the return that you need. And then I think it becomes a little bit more tricky. That's one aspect of it. The other thing that we looked at, we are true believers in omni-channel marketing because we do think, especially with awareness, and when you're targeting folks at the top of the funnel, usually a single interaction is not enough, right? So you want to touch them or you want to interact with your clients in several channels, several times, etc. And you kind of want to see, what's working or not. But sometimes it's a package, right? So you need to do several things in order for them to be successful, and that's a little bit trickier. So at that point, we invested a lot of time and effort also in development and making sure we're actually collecting all of our client information that we have in like first-party data, right? This that we have in our systems. Merging it across like different platforms. So you have practice management software, but then you have other platforms that you're using for marketing, whether it's social media or digital marketing, such as like Google Ads, etc. But how do you actually connect the dots? It's something that, we invested a lot of time and we have our own developers doing that. I think it's probably something that, an individual clinic will have a hard time justify in terms of effort. But I honestly think that even if you're not looking at omnichannel marketing, even if you're not looking at, how do I connect the dots across channel? Most clinics will have like specific, just like acquisition channels, whether it's going to be Google Ads or Yelp Ads or social media, or even like form submission on your website. That technology and looking at the forms and seeing how many people convert, etc., that's something that is probably available nowadays to every practice owner. And I honestly think it's really worth investing time, either getting like help from an agency, from someone, like you that can help you make sense of, what is efficient, how do we actually capture the clients we want to capture, right? We want to bring in, we want to have them as our clients, and we're the right fit for them.
Yep, that definitely makes sense. I think getting as much data as possible when it makes sense. I think you probably spent more time than almost anybody I know getting all of that dialed in. So I want to go back real quick to something that you said, which was you went into opening your practice with assumptions of what would work, but you made adjustments over time based on the response that you got. How did you measure that response, especially with offers and value propositions and copy and things that you saw working? What was the effective way that you went and said, I think this is what my clients actually want versus what I had initially thought?
Yeah, so we took several approaches. So one thing that's, I don't know if it's the easiest to do, maybe it was the easiest for us. But that was just looking at like launching A/B testing. And for example, right, we use like just different text in an ad or different design in an ad. And sometimes we're very surprised to learn that some things are, honestly, I think they're very psychological. Some can be like the color you use or the type of photo.
Hmm.
And that doesn't say a lot about us as a brand. It's probably just like psychology. Um, the other thing was, of course, trying different messages and see what people actually value. Right now, the fact there is one thing capturing their attention, which is nowadays very very difficult versus actually converting a client. Right, so you might be able to grab someone's attention, they will click on an ad, but then when they actually look at, okay, what are you providing, right, in terms of services and who you are, it could be irrelevant. So we looked at, of course, across the funnel, okay, what messages are very efficient in terms of getting, more engagement, so more clicks on the ad, but then what is actually more helpful in terms of actually converting people, and converting meaning like whether they call us but also book an appointment in the end. um, so that's one thing we did, and we launched lots of A/B tests that we did, and you learn a lot from it. The other thing that helps us learn is leverage platforms for just like website analysis. Many of them are free, honestly, but then you see where people are spending time on, what they care about, what they don't. And that actually helps us really, really adjust the content to make sure, someone entered or went to a website, whether it's just like the homepage or a landing page, are we really providing the information they are looking for? And that's, of course, everything is indirect here, right? So we learn through analysis that we see in terms of either like A/B testing. So that's like user behavior. The other thing that we did, you have like client base, people who decided to stick with you for either like everything we have to offer or some services. We made sure we're launching surveys, doing some even like client interviews, just to get like more of less quantitative, but sometimes like qualitative insights that is very hard to get from just like user behavior on the website or A/B testing with ads. And that was extremely helpful for us. I mentioned earlier in our conversation that we learned that our clients actually value things that we didn't think that are like big deal, but they think that. On the other hand, we invested a lot of time in other things that they probably didn't value as much. So that really, really helped how to, one, do we want to message certain marketing campaigns, and what's going to be the focus in terms of value proposition, but also really change the operations, right? So we realized, okay, certain aspects of the business that we're putting so much time on and so much attention in terms of our organization, clients don't value as much. On the other hand, things that we already provide, let's double click on them and do more of that because clients value. And things that people were looking for and we were not there yet, right, in terms of the services that we provide. So we added these as well, which was very, very insightful. And this is why I think lots of people are talking about marketing as a story, or I'm trying to sell something. The way we treat it as is part of the business and it's part of the operations in the day to day. And we move both of them together, right? And I think we even in our work, Brandon, we were thinking about what else clients are looking for, right, in terms of services. And we had lots of, let's say, brainstorming sessions about what could actually be beneficial for our clients and what we see people are searching, which is it's an early sign, right, in our market in terms of services. And then we thought, okay, should we actually offer that? Or sometimes we did offer them, but we didn't kind of like emphasize, or we didn't target specific clients who are looking for a certain service. And we launched specific campaigns for that. But that's kind of like I would say the cycle that we are experiencing like internally is marketing helps, of course, market the company and do advertisement and do retention, lifecycle marketing, etc. But also collecting the insight that then informs the operations and say, hey, did you actually think about XYZ because our clients really want that service, or they really want us to provide more of that, right, or more capabilities, and then we kind of like close the loop.
Definitely that makes sense. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you for being on the podcast. I have two more kind of quicker questions for you. The first one is, what was the biggest surprise that you were not expecting when it came to marketing your practice over the past year? Maybe something that you thought would be easier or something you thought would be harder. What was the biggest surprise?
Yeah, so I would say is when you when you actually have the biggest surprise for me is when you have actually good content, and that's only content related, but it's the same thing that you'll see even when we're doing, like, let's say, local marketing. But people are super excited about content, initiatives, events that related to their pets. So that's actually something that, really helped us. I thought it's going to be more of an uphill battle on that front, but folks are, they really like it. They really like sharing certain information with other pet parents and their friends. And there are, of course, lots of positive emotions around it. So that's something that can definitely amplify your marketing experience. And everything that has, I think, a sense of community, right? So if you are creating content is relating very specific, targeting your community and not just like generic content or events, etc. People get really excited about it. People are very collaborative. And I think also when you're doing a great job in terms of just the service you provide, that's probably more in the clinic, word of mouth is huge, right? So people will definitely spread the word for you. And no, your clients can actually be your ambassadors in a sense, right? And they can help you do marketing. That's something that I didn't anticipate, maybe a little bit, but not to the level that we are seeing.
Definitely. I think that's some really good insight. And then the last question for you here is, what was something that you wish you would have known when you started? Maybe the number one thing that you've learned that you wish you would have known before opening your first practice, which it's wild. You've only been for a year now, and you're on your, have 7 by the end of this year. That's pretty wild. What would that be if you could go back a year ago and tell yourself one piece of advice?
Yeah, I would say, and again, it's not something that was a struggle for us. On the contrary, but I think that, and it's not necessarily marketing related, but I think pretty early on, and not after we opened, but I think when Yoav and I, we spent a lot of time actually setting up Splut, and we did a lot of work before we opened the clinic. I think what we learned rather quickly, that I would say it's 2 things that are somewhat related, but the people in the industry are amazing people, super passionate, and they're doing so much above and beyond, I would say, what they're really required day to day, which was, again, amazing opportunity for us to work with people in the industry, extremely collaborative, etc. I think as the more we learn about the industry, we also learn about the challenges veterinary professionals are facing. And some of it is related to culture. Some of it is related to just like structural aspects of the industry. And we're trying to solve that. Of course, that's something everyone talks about it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's something that was in our mind, but I think we didn't understand how deep, some of these issues are. And I think today we had of course, a journey, and we focused on our culture from day one. And we were extremely happy to have a very, very positive culture at Splut. And I think if you talk with any of our employees, they'll definitely mention that. But that's something I think if we knew earlier, we could create even a better structure when we opened our first clinic a year and 4 months ago. But I think now that's definitely a focus. And this is why I mentioned earlier, we truly believe that the issue with the industry today, of course, so like demand, it does fluctuate, and I think, of course, now given the environment in the market, and people are talking about recession, yeah, things are, of course, are slowing down. Maybe they'll slow down a little bit, but I think the trajectory in terms of demand is pretty promising. There are going to be more pets out there. Pet parents will consume more services. I think is like in the next few years. The biggest issue that I think every clinic has to solve for is, of course, what we will say supply, but in a sense, it's the people. So how do you have the right people, like enough people for sure? That's the basic. But then, how do you get or build a great team? And that's something we put emphasis from day one. But I think we didn't know some of the intricacies just before we opened Splut. I think we saw that right away.
Yeah.
But that's something that I think is going to be a huge challenge, but also an opportunity for players in the industry to solve. We are one company among many. But to me, I think the most encouraging thing is you just look left and right and you see the great people you have in this industry. And I think it's very unique. Folks from the industry, I think they don't really get it necessarily because they're used to it. But people here, I think they give above and beyond, and they always do extra, and clients demand them a lot. And I think our role as a clinic owner, or I'm talking about Splut specifically, but I think it's relevant for every company, is making sure that we're building a structure that really helps these people thrive, and also stay in the industry for the long run. I think that's probably a challenge.
That definitely makes sense. And I mean, obviously you have it pretty well figured out to some extent, right? I know that hiring is an extreme difficulty for a lot of practices, and you've been bringing on lots of vets. So I think that that's probably one of the biggest marketing problems for practices that are successful, for sure, that they're going to have a hard time with supply if they're not able to maintain that positive culture and things. And I'm sure a lot of the branding that you do and the brand that you build with the way that the practice looks from, everything that you mentioned, I'm sure that that's very intentional in trying to build that culture as well in the practice. And that's part of the marketing too. Just, I guess, one real quick follow-up question on that is, how much have you seen when it comes to hiring new veterinarians and support staff and everybody in your practice? How important would you say your marketing has been to help attract those people?
So I think it was crucial, I would say. In a sense, it's not necessarily so. Funnily enough, the channels or the strategies that are working to acquire or target clients are not necessarily the same. The same channels are going to work for you when you're doing recruiting. Mm-hmm. That said, it's the same methodology in a sense. And for us, it was the testing methodology. So we tried many different things, and so what works for us, I assume every market is a little different. Every city, every state could be a little different. But, that's something that when we started in Denver, we tried many things. We see, for example, in Chicago, things are different, of course. But we figured out quickly, just because we use the same strategy we did with marketing, with testing, and looking at results and analyzing what channels are effective, etc., and really look at the funnel. How many impressions we're getting, how many engagements, how many interviews, then how many conversions. Targeting the right vets for us. It's the same. Honestly, it's the same strategy when you're thinking about it. Yeah. Applying that in a recruiting. In a recruiting mindset was very helpful. And then the channels that, work for us, we took the same infrastructure we had in our regular marketing and just applied these, whether it's, you're going to put some ads in specific listings, right? So, what to look at, how to, how to design the ad, what text to write, what do you want to try, run A/B testing, etc. And also word of mouth is huge in the industry, but there are also ways for you to encourage that as well, right?
Yeah.
And we worked on that too.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Gil, for your time. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on all your success. And if people want to reach out to you, where's the best place to do that? And obviously, if you're a vet in Chicago, I'm sure you're going to be opening more locations. So it's a cool place to work and really nice people to work with.
Yeah, 100%. So first and foremost, if anyone wants to reach out and ask questions, I'm always happy to help. Whether it's like marketing related question or anyone who works in Chicago or in Denver or want to work in Chicago or Denver, please let us know. We're always looking for great people to join. I can be reached at my email, which is Gil, Gil, at splutvets.com. And yeah, I'm always happy to help colleagues. And yeah, thanks so much, Brandon. It was a great conversation. Thanks for having me on your podcast. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Gil. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I hope that you enjoyed that episode. Thank you so much, Gil, for your time. And if you have any questions, comments, you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. But we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day.